Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our 18th community weekly update. Thank you all for sticking with us. We've seen the number of organizations that have been involved with this process are now at about 83 local organizations that were collaborating in this endeavor. I think that's really phenomenal. It speaks volumes of this community, how we can really work together to build the kind of community that we want. One that is, reflective of the values that we all share, one that is welcoming, one that is attractive for people who can come here and share those values and help us continue to build this community. And I want to thank you all for doing that. As usual, we're going to spend this time on giving you just an update on what is happening with the Afghan arrival to St. Louis. We had, crossed that 400. I think we've inched into the 500 mark now already, and Blake can give us more details on those numbers. But in this, today, we're at the point where we're really looking beyond just welcoming. We are putting a lot of effort into welcoming. We're moving people into housing, and the next step is getting people into the workforce. And that's the not to undermine, we've gone through as well in previous conversation, the educational piece, but the work, once people are settled into housing, because the crucial next step is employment. And so we're going to talk a little bit about employment and then opportunities for continuous support. And we would have as our guest speaker for today, I'm really going to shine the light on we keep talking about the TAO Fund, which is our refugee support. So we'll have Peter here, who the fund is named after his family. Is going to just talk a little bit about that fund and why it's important for people to continue to support those efforts. And then we'll have a question and answer session there. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Senior Vice President here at the International Institute, Blake Hamilton, for our weekly update.
Thank you, Arain, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again. To get us going here with our update, just want to again hit the numbers as Arain mentioned. We have passed the 500 arrival threshold, which means we are in our last bit here for Afghan parolee arrivals. We have 42 arrivals scheduled for this week and another 41 scheduled for next week. We've gotten our projected arrivals through the period of Afghan parolee resettlement that we've discussed through mid-February, and at this point we're scheduled to resettle 596 will be the number that we will be hitting by mid-February, according to the arrival sheet information that we received. Now, that is with the caveat, projecting that far out, there's always changes.
Changes, yeah.
And changes both ways, right? We have people who might elect to out-migrate if they have family elsewhere. We also have additional cases that get added to our caseload. So understanding that this is a human endeavor and we're working with humans who are self-determined to make better lives for themselves, we understand things change rapidly, as we keep saying. But as far as the update, we do have 506 arrivals, and that was through the 23rd, with 42 now scheduled for this week and 41 for next week. Relative to housing, we have seen more movement. Our new housing team has really stepped it up and gotten a lot of partnerships that you all have helped provide for us. So thank you for everybody who's met with a landlord or referred or sent me an email. We really appreciate every opportunity to speak with more landlords to develop more opportunities for housing for our clients. To that effect, we are moving 5 cases out this week. That is 22 individuals. they'll be moving into housing. In several of our large cases, we have, I believe, 2 cases of 7 included in that mix. So some of our larger families are making their way out into housing, which is great. We do expect that by the end of this week, we'll have 5 cases going out, and we'll have another 7 or 8 cases coming in. So in the net, we are still adding on a weekly basis folks who are staying in temporary housing. We do expect that number to be about 44 cases or 169 individuals at the hotels by, well, that should be the end of this week. That does, though, mean that we have 337 folks in permanent housing, which is really tremendous. We do, though, have a third that are still residing in the hotels, with, again, another 83 or so, or I'll be told another 90 to arrive. We're seeing, again, sort of this 7 weeks really being the average across all case sizes that folks are staying in hotels. So we know that we'll continue to be using temporary housing for some time, unless we find more large-scale solutions to housing needs, especially for those large families that do remain in the hotels. Again, I'm including the contact information for our housing coordinators, Galib and Abdul. Their emails are there. You have mine as well if you do know of any housing that is available, and even coming available. We still want to hear about it. We've gotten many referrals to folks who have very high expectations for vacancies come March and April. But as we wrap up Afghan resettlement, we do know refugee resettlement will continue, and we'll be starting to see special immigrant visa holders in mid-February as well. So there's still a long tail to resettlement, and housing is going to remain a challenge for us as a region, whether we're talking about Afghans or refugee arrivals more generally, because this is a challenge for all folks seeking low-income housing in our region, not just the folks that we're talking about in this meeting. An update on our costs per week related to temporary housing. And this doesn't just include our hotel costs. There are other costs that we have to consider when adding up the receipts here. The hotel rooms, of course, but we're also providing grocery support for the families in the hotels. And that is predominantly for those cases that are in hotels that have kitchenettes, where they're able to actually cook their own food. We're assisting with groceries, providing grocery cards, and thank you all for the donations and collections we've gotten. And Carlos has some more good news to share on that front. But we are burning through about $6,300 in grocery gift cards a week for our folks staying in hotels. And we add on top of that food delivery for those folks in hotels that do not have that do not have kitchens. We are also aiming to bring halal meat and bread to our clients as sort of a comfort. And we've been able to do that through various partners, but that there is a significant cost of about $8,000 per week associated with that. Now, our aim is to be scaling down. We're very few people are actually staying in hotels that don't have kitchenettes, and we hope in the next couple of weeks that we'll have nobody staying in hotels that don't have kitchenettes. So we do expect the food delivery costs to go down, of course, as we get people into housing, as well as out of these unsustainable kitchen situations in the current hotels. Another incidental cost, but one I wanted to include on here is coins for laundry. Folks staying at hotels do have access to laundry facilities. We're providing laundry detergent for everybody through the various donations that we receive, but we still have to go to the bank and get quarters to give to clients for using those hotel washing machines on a weekly basis. And at this point, it's about $450 a week. But all told, the costs are about $46,000 a week. This is how a lot of your funds are being used. And so we want to be accountable to you all who've been so generous in your donations, and let you know how this money is going back out our doors in support of our clients. We'll talk a little bit more about the funds that we have and we use and how we utilize them a little bit later. But this is really just a snapshot. this is really just, again, addressing the cost of those folks that are in hotels. I did mention we have 337 individuals in permanent housing who are likewise receiving support in the form of gift cards and grocery cards to support their needs until they can get registered for benefits. We're still seeing weeks and weeks and weeks of delays in accessing food stamps. And so for anybody who's staying in permanent housing who does not have access to food stamps, we are still providing grocery cards. So there's many more thousands of dollars that are going out on a weekly basis to those folks in permanent housing that don't have their benefits cards just yet. So with that, I'll hit pause, and of course we'll have time for Q&A at the end, but I do want to make time for my colleague Chelsea Hand, who's joining us on the call. Chelsea is our Director of Workforce Solutions at the International Institute, to tell you a little bit more about how we're supporting the transition for our Afghans and all our clients to employment, and some of the challenges and successes that we've seen in that regard. So I'll turn it over to you, Chelsea.
Thank you, Blake, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to give just a brief overview. I know if you were here a few weeks ago, I did do a Workforce Solutions introduction, but just to reiterate, what our team really is focusing on is employment preparation for working in the United States. That's the broadest way I can explain all the services that are wrapped into our Workforce Solutions. What we really try to focus on is our program enrollment, right? So we are also enrolling individuals into our grants, and through that, we're doing assessments, identifying barriers, setting goals, looking at skills, looking at gaps that maybe need to be filled ahead of referring for a job. So the program enrollment piece is not just a requirement, but it also allows us to get to know the individuals a little bit better and also try to assess and identify some of the needs and challenges. We do try to reinforce workforce norms, primarily through our job readiness class, which is just a two-part class held every week that kind of introduces individuals to working in the U.S. and what their rights and their responsibilities are as workers in the U.S. And obviously can just scratch the surface of that in our 2-week session, but at least allows us to introduce concepts like minimum wage and overtime and benefits and who's able to work and what different types of roles here and things like that. Another piece of employment prep that we focus on is interview practice. Some individuals have had years of professional experience and may have participated in many different types of interviews. Others have never had the opportunity to sit down in a formal interview setting to obtain employment. Our team also assists with job search, understanding what the needs are, what the barriers are. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, as well as what pre-screening is, but that's really an initial vetting that our team can do to assess if individuals are appropriate for a specific position. Our team also works with a variety of employers across industries to provide job referrals or referrals for consideration to employers. Our team also assists with coordinating interviews and generally transporting individuals to interviews if needed. Coordination with the employers and the possible candidates in terms of the next steps. If they are selected, we can assist also with pre-hire support, all those lovely documents, Form I-9, W-4s that you need to fill out when you start a new job, as well as drug screens, background checks, etc. And then, of course, just coaching, understanding that this is what's expected of you and this is what you should talk about at work, this is what you shouldn't talk about. So just various coaching that happens through our interactions with clients. We also talk about, who we can serve. I know that this call is primarily focused on our Afghan humanitarian parolee arrivals, but our team also serves a wide array, one of the widest array of client bases here at the International Institute, because we really can serve anybody that's work authorized. Our different grants and programs allow us to serve folks that are very, very new for their first ever jobs. So our new Afghan arrival, humanitarian parolee arrivals, our new refugee arrivals, our new SIV arrivals, asylees, victims of human trafficking, as well as refugees and those folks that have been here a little bit longer, up to 5 years in the U.S. or even beyond 5 years in the U.S. We are also very fortunate to have a program that allows us to serve individuals who are not refugee backgrounds, but have work authorization and may be coming through a variety of immigration channels to the U.S. We do have to enroll everyone in a job placement program. That's a big step that we must take in order to meet the needs of our funders and our programs that we've said that we will implement here. And so that intake process does require us to conduct a few assessments and go through an intake process with our candidates that we're working with. So our team tries to meet people where they are, depending on what their background is, what their experience of working in the U.S. is, but also tries to provide a baseline so that everybody's at least getting initial information about working in the United States. Next slide, please. So some considerations, things that folks don't always necessarily realize that has to be taken into account ahead of somebody going for a job. So say an individual is coming to you or is working with a volunteer in one of your organizations, or you meet on the street and says, I want to work. And that's great. And that's always the first step, is wanting to work and seeking to work. But there's a lot of considerations that must be taken into account before we or anyone else should be referring individuals to work. For the Afghan humanitarian parolees, they absolutely must have their employment authorization document to be authorized to work in the US. Refugees and other individuals can utilize other work documents for the Form I-9 to prove that they have work authorization, but unfortunately the parolees are limited to showing their EAD card, or the employment authorization document, as their work authorization. And so there are some delays. Some folks get them very quickly, but there's some folks that have been delayed for a while in getting that card. And unfortunately, they're not authorized to work until they have that physical card. The Social Security card is something that also folks have had massive delays on, but actually Afghan humanitarian parolees and refugees actually are able to start working without the Social Security card. But to many employers and even to many individuals, they prefer to wait or would prefer that they have the Social Security card to begin working. The Social Security card can't be used as a Form I-9 document for Afghan humanitarian parolees either. So while it is needed to present to an employer, once somebody has that, they can't present that as an initial document like you or I might do if we were to show a Missouri ID or driver's license and a Social Security card when we start a new job. So if somebody comes to you and says they're really excited, the first question should always be, do you have your work authorization document, right? That's got to be the number one thing for an Afghan humanitarian parolee in order to begin working. Other considerations are, not just wanting to work, but are they logistically and mentally prepared and able to take on all the considerations that go into working? Transportation, there's some employers that have rendezvous points and provide transportation, but many others, require knowledge of the bus or require knowledge of navigating, the city to enter that job. Our team works with employers that are on a bus line so that we can ensure folks can get to a job if that's how they would need to go. We also talk about childcare. We can't send somebody to a job if there's no childcare lined up. We wouldn't want to put that family in that situation. The type of work, there's down below, there's different requirements that we loop on, but different types of work people are just not interested in or culturally have no interest in partaking in. Work hours are fixed or varied. A lot of positions will say, oh, it varies, it changes week to week. Well, that may seem okay on paper, but when somebody relies on public transportation to get there, if the work hours change and there's no public transportation on one of the various shifts that might be needed, that can mean that person wouldn't be successful at that job or not be able to keep that job. Shift time, same thing. If everybody in the family is working at the same time, is there childcare or other considerations for getting people to school or whatever that might be? Language requirements. People are often clients may be very interested in a certain type of job, but that type of job may require much higher English than they realize because of its involvement with customers or public facing. And so our team also takes into consideration the individual's comfortability and able to use English versus what the employer is expecting. Religious requirements, particularly for folks of different religious backgrounds, there's certain days that individuals are against working. There's also different industries like working around alcohol or working around pork that other individuals don't feel comfortable with based on their religious requirements. And so that's something that we want to make sure our team talks about if the job were to require that they would be aware. You can kind of see some of the other requirements. Uniforms, if people are required to wear pants or required to wear a certain outfit, that's also something that needs to be taken into consideration and for individuals are aware of. Technological skills based. We have a lot of jobs that talk about, well, they need to be able to use a tape measure. Well, they may be able to on a metric, with centimeters, but if you're talking about inches or you're talking about utilizing things with the imperial system, many of our clients have no experience with that. And that's something that we need to, talk to them about or try to get them prepared for ahead of any type of job like that. The last thing I put is client expectations. Some individuals have very high expectations about what their first ever job in the US should be or will be. And we do try to, talk long-term about getting folks into specific fields, or that they should and will be able to re-enter certain fields, but with the time constraint that they need to be flexible. And we always talk about on our team the jobs that we've all taken that have not aligned with our career field, but that have helped to carry us through different parts of our lives. So our solution to this is really pre-screening, and that's where we talk about all these considerations, and our job developer really assesses if a role is a good fit for somebody based on what we know of the role from talking to the employer, and if the individual is aware and can handle all of the requirements of the position. The outcome is generally very good because employers rely on these targeted referrals, understanding that our team has somewhat vetted or spoken with the clients about these specific positions. It ensures clients are aware of the role. People know what they're getting into. Nobody should be going to an interview unaware of what's going to be expected of them or what the position will look like. So that's how our team tries to approach some of these personal considerations to help individuals with their job search. Next slide, please. And so while there have been many challenges, and there continue to be many challenges, our team has made really amazing, steady progress throughout the large number of arrivals this fall. As Ray and Blake mentioned earlier, we always talk about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to take care of those initial needs before you can move on to other things. And so if folks are having, medical issues or trauma that they need to address first, we want them to get that taken care of. Housing is another thing. It's really hard to have know where to look for a job until somebody's been in until they've been in a secure housing position. And then other basic needs, right? We want to make sure that folks have the mindset and have the capability and have the hours to really go to work and conduct a job search at that time. We have seen an EAD, a delay, the employment authorization document, and we've also seen people that haven't yet applied or are unsure if they've applied for the EAD document. Those have been primarily folks that left the bases early and were not necessarily received all the services that they maybe could have on base. So our team's been working really steadily to see if folks have had the application done, if it's been received, if they need to be referred. So following up on that is a major consideration for us. We also have some individuals that, although we say you can start to look for a job or we can even help you find a job, they really said, I want to wait for my social security card. And that's, of course, we don't force anybody into our services and we don't force anybody into our program. So we have some folks that choose to wait or say, oh, I'm going to look for something once I get this. So there's just different documentation that does slow things up. Staffing, like many companies that we're trying to help fill, my team too has been extremely short-staffed and remains short-staffed for this past few months. And so particularly during October and November, there was myself and two other people that were trying to navigate and manage the many numbers of arrivals that were coming through. We fortunately have been able to hire a couple more people since then, but we have been training those individuals and getting those folks up and going. So we're still kind of building. We've also had a lot of difficulty securing long-term volunteers within our department to kind of provide that regular gap fill service and support. We also have difficulty transporting with many clients not knowing how to take the bus and not being able to navigate that. We've often had to go pick up, and with only a few staff members, picking up and dropping off limits the number of folks we can see per day because we're spending that time to transport. We've also had challenges and difficulty in contacting individuals. Numbers have changed, or people don't have phone numbers, or they came in once to see someone. So we're doing our best, and we've done my team has done an amazing job in connecting with many of the arrivals that have arrived in October, November, and December and January now to get them enrolled into our programs. But there are still delays and still, numbers of folks that we are seeking to connect with. Some successes or some steady progress to show is since September. I just chose that month because that's really when we started to see the numbers of Afghan humanitarian parolees, among others. This is not only Afghan humanitarian parolees, as we've also seen many refugees, victims of trafficking, asylees, and immigrants during that time. We have served 103 that have registered for our job readiness class. 72 have attended so far. So some of these folks will still attend this Friday or next week. 67 have graduated, meaning that they've completed both of our sessions and are now moving on to connecting with our team for interview practice or job search. 58 have initiated job search during that time, which means that they've met with our team. We've talked about their needs, their skills, and starting to refer them on. And we really are starting to get folks referred to companies and getting them connected to a variety of employment opportunities. Again, we don't send every person to the same opportunity because that doesn't fit, right? We try to find things that match the needs, the skills of both the employer and the job seeker. And that means that it takes a little bit of nuance at times, and also, factoring in all the other considerations such as transportation that need to happen before referring. But there's been a lot of progress made in getting folks prepared and now connected. And obviously we'll continue to see more and more folks screened and referred to our programs as more and more folks come in. Next slide, please. So talking about the employment opportunities that our team is generally working with, we are typically seeking roles greater than the minimum wage. I will say, this is extraordinarily high. The Missouri minimum wage was raised to $11.15 in January. I think 4 short years ago, it was less than $9. So this is a huge, or less than $8. So this is a huge jump in the last few years as it's growing up to, I believe, $12 an hour by 2023. But we also need to find jobs that are easily accessible within the time frame, right? We can't always have folks hold off for that highest paying, that perfect opportunity for them, because that may take longer than the time that is needed to start paying their rent or start, becoming self-sufficient. So we're typically looking at entry mid-level roles for folks so that they can engage quickly, right? These hiring processes usually aren't month long. They're usually a few weeks, right? Which allows folks to get into these positions much more quickly. Most of the jobs we've been placing recently where folks have had the most interest is light and heavy manufacturing, where these roles are typically full-time, stable, long-term positions that are benefited, often with good benefits. We even have a few that are providing transportation or helping folks to navigate that. Packaging is another huge industry where we see a lot of interest that folks, especially with more limited English and lack of work history, can navigate pretty easily. We also have a lot of skilled labor positions, maintenance and skilled trades that folks are looking for. So if people have that kind of skill set, we want to try to direct them to that kind of work. Sewing positions, other types of skilled roles. Obviously, hospitality is a great entry-level role, but it's very, very physical, and traditionally has not been one of the higher paying entry-level roles. And so when needed, we will refer folks if that's the best fit or the best option for them, but it's not one that we have a lot of interest in, to be honest, at this time. Same retail, obviously, will require a higher level of English and generally a more familiarity with working with U.S. Cultural or, working with different groups within the U.S. to be really successful at that role. So that's not one we see a lot of folks getting connected to, at least initially. Food production is another big one. We have quite a few companies that we work with for food production and a variety of roles. Customer service, there are some roles that we try to connect individuals to, again, if they have maybe the digital literacy or the English literacy that might allow them these type of roles. And then there's more technical roles like security or specific types of roles that, when possible, we try to connect folks with those backgrounds too, but that's not always open or available when somebody is at that point. Placements. So just to give you an average, the last few months have been a bit different because I've been shorter staffed, as I mentioned, and we'd also seen less individuals in the earlier part of the fall, and then of course more individuals later on. But from October to January, we had anywhere from $12 to $20 an hour for the roles and an average wage of $16.60. Now, that being said, that's predominantly folks, we'll see some folks that will need to find jobs less than $16.60, maybe less English skills and or less work experience that may, it just really depends on the individual. So really anywhere from 12 to 20 is what we're looking at for now. And as I said, it really also depends on the availability, when somebody's looking and when that position is open, and versus, when shift availability may be open too. If somebody's only open for this shift, but only this shift is available, so it always just a lot of considerations that our team tries to take into effect, but always trying to find the best opportunity for our candidates. And we're really proud of $16.60. That's a very livable wage for especially an entry-level first ever job in St. Louis. Next slide, please. And so how we do this and how we connect is really our job order form. That's our primary tool for communicating with employers. This form is accessible via our website, and I've included the links both to our web page where you can find information and then the box to click, or just the direct link for our job order form. Once an employer enters the information about the position they're seeking to fill and their company and all the specifics that can really help our team to assess if this might be a good position for our candidates or not, they will submit that form. That then comes to our job developer, hopefully soon job developers, to review and provide possible referrals and connections when possible. We've seen with the economy and then with the news of the huge number of arrivals of ACAN since August, we've seen massive numbers. I wanted to pull up before this meeting, but I would guess well over probably 500, or maybe not 500, but hundreds, I will say, of employers have reached out to try to source candidates. And so obviously we can't fill all those positions, or not all those positions are, a good fit at any given time. So what we do is we say we'll review, and if there's nobody that we can connect with in the near-ish future, or there's nobody that we can refer, we will definitely keep it on file, right? Doesn't mean that just because we didn't provide referrals now, we never will, right? It also depends on our candidate pool. This could be a really great position, but nobody meets that, or nobody really fits that or is interested in that right now, but maybe a month or 2 months or 6 months down the line, there will be. And so we're trying to explain to employers that we're very grateful for them to be reaching out to us, and we're happy to make those connections now if possible, but it's not always possible, and it's not going to be always possible for every person that connects. So we are saying we will keep on file, and we're happy to do so. We also try to encourage employers to connect with other resources that can help them be better employers for new Americans that they may be working with. We often refer employers that have never worked with foreign-born individuals or non-US citizens, I'll say, to our cultural competency trainings. Our team also does a lot of support and understanding what documentation is allowable for folks that aren't US citizens in terms of working and showing work authorization. We also can connect to our work-based ESOL learning opportunities, where employers have hired our contractors through the education department to provide on-site English classes for for their employees, which has been a great resource for individuals that couldn't otherwise access English classes due to their work schedule. So we try to encourage employers, it's not just we're going to provide you referrals and then send you on your way. We do try to stay connected in case there are any questions or there are any issues that may arise. But traditionally, we're trying to set folks up for self-sufficiency, and not bearing in too much on their work once they start working, in order to really become self-sufficient and become, comfortable in their roles. So that's a bit about the workforce team and how things are going currently. I did see a couple pop-ups of questions, and I couldn't catch them while I was presenting, but I'd be happy to answer those or any other questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chelsea, for that very, very detailed presentation, which I think is really necessary. I was, in our planning, we said we were getting a lot of questions about employment, and we thought it was necessary for us to try to share as much as possible to help everybody who understand how we're working, what are the opportunities, and how they can support this effort. I see a question from Peter Tao, which says, how do you let the workforce know that you have candidates for employment? How would Peter let us know that he has candidates for employment?
Well, I just saw that you have the Employer Connect that
you
came up.
So. Okay, so that addresses the.
Yes. So once an employer has submitted a job order form, they do have to include like the contact information of the person that we would be in contact with, and what their title is, what their name is, even what their preferred form of communication is. That's really how we link up and how we learn how to communicate with the employer. Oftentimes, if there's questions, the job orders, I will say, pretty complete, but there's always things that maybe are missing, or somebody doesn't fill out a section as comprehensively as we would have liked. We will reach out and say, hey, we've got a question about this before we even refer somebody, right? Because we want to make sure, if they say, oh, various shift times, well, what does that mean? We really need hours, right? In order to know, is the bus running at that time? Can somebody, we need as many specifics as possible. And how we often get employers to feel really comfortable with that is letting them know that this isn't posted anywhere publicly. This isn't something that's shared widely. This is really between between our jobs team and the employer, and then of course the candidate when we are screening them. But we're not sharing trade secrets with anybody. We're just understanding more about the role and the position so that we can make better referrals, and so the candidate knows what they're getting into, because we would hate to send somebody for an interview or for a referral and they're like, I didn't know this is what the job is. I don't want to, we don't want to waste anybody's time. That's really what this pre-screening and this connection process is trying to eliminate. We do the best that we can. Obviously, we can't ask every single thing that the employer might ask for, but we do provide pretty, I would say, thorough and targeted referrals listed there.
Chelsea, a question just came up about the healthcare that I don't see from Sharon Crosstown. She says, I don't see healthcare listed among the jobs that may be available. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. There are many employers in the healthcare field that do reach out to us, and that is a field that is open and available to candidates. Sorry, my lights went off there. For healthcare positions themselves, many are regulated and require licensure, and so that's obviously a barrier for folks to get into quickly. That's not something usually you can have as an entry-level job. For other roles like dietary or maintenance or housekeeping, those are options. It really depends on the interest of the candidates as well, and the pay. To be honest, quite frankly, there's a lot of really good paying positions, and so that's also another thing, is if somebody can get a higher paying role in a different industry or a different type of job, obviously they're probably going to go for that. So it really just depends. We do our best to match, like I said, interest, background, skills, location for our candidates, and as well as abilities, right? We don't want to set somebody to a position that they're not going to be able to navigate. They don't have the technical or physical skills to do, but we will talk about, and as a long-term goal, that's something that we could that they could work towards as well. So healthcare is one, and we've seen people in the past as home health assistants and things like that. Not as much interest in the last few years with that, but definitely is still open and an option.
Thank you very much, Chelsea. Seeing that there are no other questions in the...
I had a question. I didn't see restaurants on the list.
Oh, we had the hospitality.
Are they under hospitality? I wondered if they were included under hospitality. Okay.
Yeah, the restaurants have been a position where folks have worked in, but restaurant work's a little bit challenging. I was a waitress at one time, so I know explicitly about this. But many of the positions, like being a server or being on a wait staff, is a tipped position, so it's not necessarily something that's guaranteed. Also, most hospitality restaurant roles don't offer benefits, right? So that's something that if somebody needs to support their family and have health insurance after their initial period up here in the U.S., that's not always the best option. And sometimes the shifts switch, between morning and evening, and so sometimes that's not always a great fit. A lot of people looking for part-time work, we do traditionally try to refer to hospitality or roles like that, because those are offer part-time or shift roles. So that's something there, but not a lot of interest. Also high levels of English if you're going to be communicating with customers. So that's something that, for individuals that are very new and don't have very strong English skills yet, that's not going to be a comfortable position for them either.
I wondered what percentage of people are fluent in English? I would imagine very few, if any, huh?
It really depends. Just day to day, week to week, it really changes. The various groups, there's certain folks that have extremely high English skills, and there's many other individuals that have never had the opportunity to study. So we're really trying to meet the need. We have to serve everybody, right? So we try to meet the need across the board and connect folks based on whatever their skills are. And of course, if there are positions that lend themselves to higher English, we'd be happy to connect them to those, but always just trying to meet the need with our candidate pool.
Sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Chelsea. I know how busy your day was yesterday when you're performing your was it yesterday or the day? I know you were on jury duty, so I'm glad you came in and we were able to do this for us. Thank you so much. At this point, let's talk a little bit about some opportunities, and so I would ask for Kelly. Kelly, please, can you talk a little bit about the opportunities? And after Kelly, we'll talk a little bit about the TAO Fund. But Kelly, please.
Wonderful, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at the International Institute, and my job has been beautifully busy since a year ago. So I appreciate your support, and let's talk about how you can continue to support us. After a successful campaign with the Martin Luther King Day, we were able to get the word out that we were in need of lamps and space heaters and blankets. Those items continue to be the items in need. Those items continue to be items we will need for a very long time in the hopeful response of these numbers. So if you know anybody who has an old lamp in their basement that works, that would be wonderful. We need floor lamps and table lamps. If you know anybody that has a relatively new space heater, because we want to avoid the old space heaters that are problematic, please send them our way. And blankets and grocery gift cards are always appreciated. The other thing to know is that some of the questions have been, can we just send the items to the Institute? And the answer is yes. We have wish list items on Amazon and Target. Some of you also know that I'm not the best at technical things. So if you search the Amazon wish list with International Institute of St. Louis, you will find it. Or maybe one of my beautiful coworkers on this call can post it in the chat. But there is an Amazon wish list and a Target list, and both of those items, if you order from those sites, will be sent to the International Institute. If you choose that option, please try to put donation or my name on the package. It doesn't always work that my name or the word donation goes on there, but we figure it out in the end. Then you have the beautiful Tau Fund. Are we going to hear from, we might be hearing from one of our members there. Oh, okay. The slides are switching, I'm sorry. So volunteering, we have tons of opportunities for volunteering. All of our volunteer opportunities right now are posted on our website. Again, you could go to Get Involved, the Get Involved button. Under that, you will see volunteer. And when you click on that site, you will see daily volunteer opportunities. Now, one really big one that we have not been able to fill in a long time has been bus training volunteers. We need English speaker community members to go on the bus with limited English speakers. Anyone can do this, even if yourself have not been on a bus before. All you need to do is act like an escort. Basically, your English skills will get you through the traveling plans. We typically ask you to do smaller routes, which include maybe going from the Institute to their home, maybe going from the Institute to the library. And we're really just assisting individuals with the physical idea of hopping on a bus, using the bus pass, and looking at things around them. So if you know anybody who wants to be a bus trainer, please help with that. As you can see, Chelsea says that this also helps them get jobs as well. So, but any other opportunities for volunteering include helping to sort items, helping to set up homes. The list goes on and on. I'm sure you all can find it. If you have questions, be sure to email me if you have intricate questions. Lastly, the Community Support Program. This is an amazing program that we launched a few months ago. And this is really a program that we've talked about multiple times on this call. So in brief, you could help newly arrived families with your financial contributions and your partnership contributions, meaning, again, taking them to the library, maybe offering them another bus training, offering them another grocery store training, practical life skills that will help families adjust to St. Louis. That contact person is Wafa. I haven't been able to scroll to see if she's on the call, but if you have any questions regarding that program, she will be the person to answer. And then donate. As we all know, we cannot do this work without the support of the community. You all saw today the costs that we incur for the hotels. We're making it work because of generous support by you. So that's an easy one to talk about. And the least favorite of mine to talk about. But your help is wonderful, and you can always encourage your neighbors, your family, your friends to provide us with money.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. We just quickly before we go on to, we'll turn this over to Peter to talk a little bit about what the Tau Fund is, because we all talk about this Tau Fund, but it's really rooted in the background of Peter's family supporting the work at the International Institute. And so I'm going to turn this over to Peter. We'll save the last 5 minutes for some announcements from the command center, which I would have Carlos talk about. But Peter, can you talk a little bit about the background of the Tau Fund and why is it the Tau Fund? And what is the Tau Fund being used for?
Yes. So to put it in perspective, the Tau origins in St. Louis began in 1947 when my father first immigrated here as a student, all alone, didn't know anybody. And then shortly thereafter, about a year later, my mother and my oldest brother arrived. So during that process, they learned you don't have to be a refugee. You can be a transplant to any country or any city. And if many of you, I'm sure, have experienced that. I was an expat in England and I thought I was in another world because of the cultures and habits and protocols, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone knows that if you don't have someone to help, like in this case, the International Institute, life can be tough regardless. And so that was something that was deeply rooted in my parents' experience coming from a China that was in civil war, Japanese war had just ended, et cetera, et cetera. So when they came here, they had some people immediately helping them, including what then eventually became the mayor of St. Louis, Raymond Tucker. He was a mechanical engineering chair at WashU at the time. So helping matters, helping does make a difference. And for those who have received help, it becomes very impactful in their lives. And so with that lens, the Tau history has almost been now 50 years informally. My father met then young Anna Crosland before she became the director in 1973. And then formally in 1978, the relationship started building. And through that relationship, which is always important, good relationships and good organizations are very important. It just became part of just what the Taus engaged in. And so over that course of time, starting with my mother in the late 1970s, she became chair of the board or president of the board, or served on the board. Eventually, other Taus, my brother and myself, we've served many, many terms off and on with the board. So we were just deeply rooted in everything. And my father helped chair the International Institute's biggest campaign in 1998 for the former headquarter facility on Grand. And those all resonated very much with us. And we are very grateful that in 2009, the Institute, through a leadership donation, that was the 90th anniversary of the Institute, through a leadership donation that my parents started, that the Tau Fund started. And the Tau Fund, as I think probably has been explained to you, is there to supplement the needs of the Institute and use to your discretion, but for things that are not covered by grants or other federal programs. So that is a bit of a history, and we're coming on 50 years of interacting with the Institute. I'm not directly active. I'm in the background, helping and supporting in different ways. So it just, it's what we do and what we hope people will understand. This fund will now help those others who just obviously need help.
Thank you very much, Peter. I have a feeling that you're part of the family. It's you know, we're constantly engaged in conversations, the things you hear, the advice you give from all the time, the designing the gym with the, you know, with the shelves that we have in there. Thank you so much for your help. And that's the Tau Fund. I think the Tau Fund now, maybe we have about, you know, about $300,000 in the fund that has been coming from the community, and that we're using to close this gap, the hotel bills, the meals, everything that Blake presented. And so we thought that it was helpful to just explain the origin of that fund, why it exists, and how helpful it has been at this time, because we're leaning on that to fill the gap in funding whilst we try to put our arrivals into permanent housing, so that we don't use their stipend before they even get into housing. So that has really been what we've used to close the gap. So if there are any opportunities for donation, that would be something that we would encourage people to donate to. With that, I just want to come back to opportunities. Carlos from the command center, I know that the collaboration has been phenomenal there with all the organizations, but are there any announcements that we should make at this point with reference to that?
Yeah, thanks, Ari. And we've been really thankful for our collaborations with our partners. Want to give, you know, just another shout out to the partners that we've been working with straight out of the command center to really address the current immediate needs that we have at hand. As you see from all the numbers, from all the costs, from everything that's going on, there's a large need, and we just are very thankful for all the partners that are helping us fill the gaps, such as Christian Friends of New Americans, Welcome Neighbor, STL, Oasis International, the Little Angels Foundation, House of Goods, and the Islamic Foundation, and the Seventh-day Adventists. So I want to thank everyone for their support in this. And I mean, it's really because of community members that have really stepped up to the plate. And we want to announce that we've also had a very generous contribution of $10,000 that is going specifically towards grocery gift cards that we just received word on this week. So extremely grateful for individuals and families that are stepping up to the plate with volunteerism and also with contributions financially to support this major need that we have. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Carlos, for that. At this point, are there any questions that have not been addressed that we can take at this time? Yes, Carol.
I have a question. I'm a new volunteer, a family partner with a family that we met with yesterday, and I just need I need to know where to go to get medical care for the mother. She actually needs dental care pretty badly too. She has pain, and just don't know where to go for that or who to.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really honest with you. Dental care in St. Louis is sometimes very hard to get. I'm trying to get dental care for somebody right now, and the appointment is a month later. So it can be very hard. I would suggest, Carol, that if you met with staff yesterday, that staff that you spoke with, if you can contact them, I don't know the case, that they can start to try to get dental care at, really, there's only 2 places in St. Louis that will take Medicaid or medical coverage for dental care. If you don't have medical coverage, there is not a lot of options for you for dental care.
Yeah, I don't take up a lot of time, but it's problematic because they came here from Kansas City. Their caseworker is in Kansas City. They haven't gotten one in St. Louis, and they're kind of in limbo land. And
Okay.
I actually
Um,
think that they, if I know the case, and I don't want to take too much time, they actually are not in our APA program because they left Kansas City and agreed not to enroll in the APA program in St. Louis. So they're most probably working with our social work department in another program, either RSS or ASA. And that's who I would contact for information. If you want, you can email me the name of the client and I can find out who's working with them and get them in touch with you.
okay, I can't see who's
Oh,
talking.
my name's Ariel Burgess, sorry.
Ariel,
Carol, I can also connect you with Ariel after this call.
okay, perfect.
Thank
Let's
you.
do that. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of medical situations, and I think once you have a situation like that, if you can reach out either to Aria or for the volunteers, you can reach out to Carlos in the command center, and he'll work with Ariel and the team to look at what the options are to find. We will always try to find a solution one way or the other. It may be challenging, but we'll work with you to find a solution.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Carlos, please, can you once more drop the contact your contact information to the command center in the group, so just as a reminder for if there is any need for that. Any other questions with the 2 minutes that we have left? Seeing none, again, really just want to thank everybody for being here. The work continues. The collaboration continues. It's amazing. We're making progress. We're seeing openings with housing, putting people in housing. We're seeing people going to school, work opportunities coming up. We will continue this conversation, and we hope to take everybody down the line. So it's going beyond just the welcoming piece and what happens next. We're also really looking to try to build communities around where we resettle people. So we're even looking at working with the local police, looking at working with the various mayor's offices and school districts to support these families wherever we put them. And we would also be leaning on you and some of your organizations to facilitate that task. So thank you very much. Peter, thank you for coming in and sharing that story, your family story. It's been incredibly helpful at this time. So thank you all for your work. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you next week.